I didn't realize how vulnerable I had been with my teams until one of our team members passed away. And I had to be the one to break that news to my team. And that's something I never thought I'd ever have to do, ever in my life. But yet, that's what I had to do. And I did it. And when you're faced with a team of people who are hearing that their colleague has died, and you are the person in charge, you're telling them this about their colleague, it's different. So when you're crying about this person's passing and they're crying, it's different. So vulnerability isn't a choice, I don't think. Vulnerability makes the difficult days easier because people know that you're coming to them, sharing with them with your heart.
You're listening to the Life and Leadership Podcast, where leaders from across the globe share openly about the trials, triumphs, and lessons learned along the leadership journey. Whether you're a seasoned, new, or aspiring leader, get ready to receive powerful insights and practical takeaways to help you grow in your leadership. And now, here is your host, Mary Eniolu.
For you to be an authentic leader, there has to be a willingness to be vulnerable. And I think vulnerability is something that a lot of leaders shy away from because for some reason people see vulnerability as weakness. It means you're not strong. It means you're putting yourself in a position where people can criticize you, maybe even throw you under the bus, depending on the kind of environment you work in. So I'm going to ask you then, how important a role does vulnerability play in the making of a good leader?
I think in terms of leadership generally, I think it's quite important. I think people want to know that you are a real person, that you have feeling, that you're touched by things that touch others. I think for me, vulnerability has been massive. I think it's actually, if I say about myself, it's probably what sets me apart from different leaders. I think the way I am with my teams, the way I am with my people at work, I have to be vulnerable because what I've been through at work, what I've been through in my personal life, and what we've experienced as teams together, it's a big part of who we are identity-wise and how we are. Like I'm a big advocate for well-being in the workplace and wellness and, trying to have that work-life balance, but also prioritizing different types of health. So it would be very odd if I wasn't vulnerable and shared my own experiences of that myself and my journey. Again, sharing with wisdom, you're not oversharing, you're not making it uncomfortable, you're not, taking over the morning stand-up with your emotions. It's not a counseling session, but I think being vulnerable at appropriate times is very, very important and has been.
Yeah, like I said before, I think some leaders might be scared of being vulnerable. So what would you say to a leader who is thinking, well, I hear what you're saying, but surely if I'm vulnerable, then people are not going to take me seriously. They're going to think I'm weak. What would you say to them?
You can't afford to not be vulnerable. You can't afford to not show people who you are, the kind of person you are. And that's for good or for bad, because unfortunately, life happens to everyone and you may not have a choice about your vulnerability. That's been the story of my leadership journey. And, I didn't realize how vulnerable I had been with my teams until one of our team members passed away. And I had to be the one to break that news to my team. And that's something I never thought I'd ever have to do, ever in my life. But yet, that's what I had to do. And I did it. And when you're faced with a team of people who are hearing that their colleague has died, and you are the person in charge, you're telling them this about their colleague who you don't know as well as they know. You're the person who's joined the team most recently. They've had years together. It's different, So when you're crying about this person's passing and they're crying, it's different. So vulnerability isn't a choice, I don't think. Vulnerability makes the difficult days easier because people know that you're coming to them, sharing with them with your heart. It's not a formality. It's not a tick box thing. People hate that. I find people hate that. So yeah, I don't think you have a choice. If I'm being honest, sorry to say, new leader or aspiring leader, it's not optional. Vulnerability, I find, is the backbone of good leadership. And I will say this because when you started and I did say, oh, this is a podcast, it's an audio only podcast. And you're like, no, it's going to be on YouTube. I was like, oh, this is a big part of vulnerability as well. Sometimes you show up flaws and all. Like
Mm.
I'm on maternity leave. I have a newborn son. I'm not caring any day about makeup and hair. So I'm not thinking that through. But I do want to show up and give you the real honest conversation. So
Mm.
when you said to at the beginning, oh, you can take some time to get yourself ready, I thought, no need. I'm ready now. I've
Wow.
been ready. I've been looking forward to this conversation just as you have. And I just thought, no, this is a part of my mission. I hope people understand this as well. Being vulnerable just means being yourself sometimes. And
Mm.
that means stripping back everything. I said to you, I'm going to put some cream on my face because I felt very dry. But just that, you don't have to have everything together. It's okay to just show
Yeah.
up as you are in the
Yeah.
moment. That's enough. That's enough.
Awesome. Hmm. Wow, that is powerful. That is powerful because we're emotional beings, aren't we? At the end of the day, no position, title, no title, we're
Mm,
emotional beings. And if you
yeah,
can connect with people on that emotional level, then you connect with them. And
absolutely.
yeah, because we live life from that place of emotion. And
Mhm,
so, like you said, I can see how that would set you apart as a leader. I must say, it doesn't come natural to
mhm,
everyone. I certainly, it
mhm.
doesn't come natural to me, certainly, but over the years as a leader, I've had to learn to be
Yeah.
more open.
Mhm,
I'm a very private person.
yeah.
I can be quite clinical, or I used to be
Mhm,
in the way I operated. But over the years, like you say, I've had to learn that people really
mm,
value when you can connect with them,
yeah.
um, and still be a strong leader, and still be the one that they look up to, and still be the one
Yeah.
who can give them hope that we're
Mhm,
going, like you say, to a better place, and I'm taking you
yeah.
there. It's a fine line, I suppose, to tread, between being vulnerable and being the competent, the strong, the leader with the vision and all of that. But I think they're both absolutely necessary. And for me, I feel having that good relationship with your team members actually makes it easier when you have to have some tough conversations, because for me,
Mm,
I feel like they know where you're coming from. They know your heart, so they know you're not picking on them. They know
mm.
it's just what it is. We're here to do a job,
Yeah.
and it just makes it easier to have those tough conversations.
I
You
agree.
know,
I think with leadership, it's like we're multifaceted people. We have many sides to our personalities. That's normal. You're never just in one mode. So even if you
mm,
are a clinical, very direct person, you're still going to have a funny side to you, a playful side to you. There's different sides. You won't bring
yeah,
all those sides to work. However, there'll be moments where you have to employ that side of yourself to get the right outcome. And I think
mm,
with me, what I've found is, for example, vulnerability has been the key that's unlocked other things with my team. And because I've come to the business, I'm fairly young. When I joined the business, I was the youngest person at my grade. And that was a big shock to a lot of people who were seeing me as, oh, she's young. No one
mm.
said it to my face, but the reaction was very, you can feel it, you can tell. But it was also, I'm in a very male-dominated space. 70% of our people are men, a lot of men in this area, older men as well, English men. I'm the only black woman. I was the only black woman in my place at that time. It's changed now, but at the time I was only one. So for me, I couldn't not be vulnerable. I had to be myself. And also, when I realized that my vulnerability allowed others to also share their own stories, a lot of it is modeling. You are role modeling the behaviors that you want to see in your team and in your people. And if they don't see it in you, they're not going to really do it. So,
Yeah,
some of it is personality, like you're born with it, but a lot of it, like you said, Mary, you are going to learn. You are going to have to adapt. We have a leadership team, and we had like a massive personality test that we did, and we found out which colors we all were, and it was quite interesting because like, oh, you're this color, you're that color, and it was
yeah.
very clear who was. I won't ask you. Well, I won't ask you to guess what color you think I am.
Probably the yellow.
Yes, I'm yellow red. So
Yeah,
sunshine yellow, fiery
yeah,
red. And
yeah.
it's so true because I am really sunshine yellow, sunny side up, glass half full, but I'm also quite fiery red. Get to the point. Don't
Mm,
waste my time. But
mm,
those two things often at opposite ends, they work really well in my space because
mm.
I'm a legal professional. I have to be to the point, but also I work with people. The law is very tough, but it's people, real lives are being affected. So you have to have
Yeah,
that side of you as well.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's so that's so true. I mean, I don't use the colors, I use disc, but
Okay.
they're quite similar. So when you
Mm,
said colors with the disc, the I is the yellow, and
yeah.
I is the influential, outgoing, fun-loving style,
Yeah.
and the D is the red. Yeah,
Yeah.
so and I'm a DC, so
Okay.
you're quite a good mix. You're a DI. The I is more people, and the D is more task. I'm
Yeah,
just a
yeah,
D.
yeah.
I'm very task driven. So I had to learn. I really
Yeah.
had to learn to be more
Mm,
people oriented and understand
yeah.
that, all of that. Yeah, I had to, that there was a big, massive shift I had to
I
do.
bet. I
But
bet.
I always say that doing the disc is probably one of the biggest changes that I've had
Mm,
to go through in my journey. It really,
yeah.
I do this with all of my clients because it's
Yeah.
so powerful to just, you're talking about self-awareness, to just know
Mm,
yourself and to know those things that people have been trying to say to you all your life.
yes.
You're too domineering, you're too controlling, you like to be in charge all the time. I'm like, no, I don't, no, I don't, no, I don't. And now you read a
Now
computer
you see it.
generated
Yeah,
quote that
absolutely.
tells you you have to listen more. And I'm like, of course I
Yeah.
listen. Just staying with that vulnerability for a moment. I think it takes boldness to be vulnerable.
Mm,
It really does take a lot of boldness. And very often when people don't want to be vulnerable, it's because they're not bold enough. They're
mm,
maybe worried about what other people will say, what other people will think. But like you say, when you get past yourself, on Saturday or 2 Saturdays ago, I was giving a talk about what not making it about you will do for you. When we stop making it about us and
yeah.
we just think, okay, I'm just going to get over myself, I'm going to get over this, and
Yeah.
I'm just going to go for it, it really does make such a huge difference. When we stop thinking about just ourselves and maybe how uncomfortable doing certain things makes us feel, or how we're not sure what the outcome is going to be, when we just get over ourselves, it enables us to chart the path for others and opening the door for other people to go through certain pathways that they maybe never thought they could. But just
Yeah.
by seeing others, lifting their head above the parapet and saying, this is who I am, and being bold enough to take that stand, being bold enough to be vulnerable, being bold enough to be authentic makes
Yeah.
such a huge difference. So I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
how can that be caught? How can that be taught? This idea of being bold enough, because often when we talk about boldness, we're thinking about achieving, we're thinking about going for the role, we're thinking about all those
Mm,
things. But how can someone cultivate that boldness? What are some of the things? Maybe for you it came natural, but maybe there are other aspects of it that you had to just learn, or you had to be intentional in developing as well. How can someone
yeah.
cultivate that boldness to be able to overcome themselves, to
Mm,
live on this level of vulnerability and authenticity that you're describing?
mm. That's a very, very good question. That one needs to be unpacked, perhaps in its own little podcast. But I guess what I would say, I'm going to be very honest. For me, my boldness is a given because I know who I am. And I think if you understand your identity, who you really are, you're not going to be timid and you won't be afraid.
Mm,
A lot of the time, people struggle with their identity because they don't know who they are. I know who I am in my faith as a Christian. My identity doesn't come from what I do or what I'm attached to. It comes from the one who made me. So because I
mm,
have identity, I'm good. I'm peaceful. I'm relaxed. That's the number one thing for me. I think it comes from knowing who you are and having a sense of identity. I'm a woman of faith. That's always going to be me. On top of that, one way that we develop boldness is actually hearing things we don't want to hear. And that
mm,
thing you said about making it not all about you, that's important because sometimes we don't want to hear that. We want people to tell us, no, it's all about us. It's all about what we've experienced. And that's not true. And I think, can we be brave enough to allow others to tell us the truth about ourselves? For
mm,
me, I gained a lot of that by being mentored. And I allowed myself to be mentored by a judge, two judges when I started off my career, and they gave me some real talk. They gave me some honest talk, good and bad, and I loved it. It was helpful for me. It helped me grow. Now I'm a mentor to people, and I give them that real talk too. So I think if you're trying to cultivate a spirit of boldness or sort of, you know, a confidence as a leader, you really should invest in those relationships with a mentor or a trusted person who can I say you can invite to, give permission to speak into your life, tell you the truth, give you feedback. Feedback is something we don't do enough. Feedback, in a constructive way, but actually telling you the truth and listening to what they're saying, being
Yeah.
teachable, being humble, going back to the beginning, humility.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really important. So I think, number one, knowing who you are in terms of your identity and knowing that your identity is not based on what you do for a living. It's not based on your occupation or what you studied or where you live, your postcode. Those things don't matter. It's the character of the person. That's one.
Yeah.
Number two is allowing someone that you trust, a mentor, to give you that real talk, that honest, real feedback.
That is so good. I often say self-awareness
Mm,
and self-acceptance
mm,
are two important keys to self-confidence.
yeah.
Self-awareness and self-acceptance, like you're saying, knowing yourself, knowing who you are, and then accepting who you are. It doesn't mean you don't grow. It doesn't mean you're perfect. It doesn't mean you don't leave room. One of my mentors says the biggest room in my house is always the room for improvement, right?
That's
So
good.
there always has to be that room for improvement, but just accepting this is who I am. This is who
Mm,
I am. And being aware of that, it really, for me, again, going back to DISC, doing my DISC report, it really just helped me just settle in my skin.
yeah.
Whereas, for a lot of years, I heard people say all these things about me. Like I was saying, you're very controlling. You'll always
Yeah.
like to have your own way. And I just felt like that's not me. That's not me. I really couldn't see it. When they say you want to have your own way, I'm like, no, I don't want to have my own way. I just like things done the right way. It's not my fault I'm always right.
Yeah.
That was really how I saw it. It's not my fault I'm
Yeah.
always right. But then understanding this is how people see me. And the reason they see
Mm,
me in that light is because this is how I am. So because I'm very
yeah.
task driven, I just want things done. I just want to get to the point and get things done. And so and so people see me as uncaring. No
Mm,
surprises.
yeah.
So I was seeing it from one perspective, but now being aware of my blind spots and seeing how people were seeing me really helped me
Yeah.
understand, okay, so this is why I'm this way, and this is
Hmm.
the vibe I'm giving to others because I'm this way. So just
Yeah.
that awareness really, really helped me to now begin to say, okay, we still need to get the job done, but we don't want to come across as obnoxious. We don't want to come across
Yes.
as arrogant. So what are we going to do
Yes.
about that? So accepting who I am, I'm a strong person. I know what I want. I know what I want. I'm not going to apologize for that. But then becoming aware of all these other areas that I wasn't aware of, it
Yeah.
really gave me confidence. There's nothing wrong with you. This is just the way you were wired.
Exactly.
But you now need to understand how to do life with the way you're wired, but do life with other people, understanding
Yes.
that other people are wired differently. So, yeah, self awareness, self acceptance really will give you self confidence, like you're saying. But something else you added on that was, allowing yourself to be teachable.
Very important.
We have to continue this conversation some other time, Stephanie. I'm sorry, but we have so much more to talk about, and we just don't have the time
Yeah.
today. If you're enjoying this conversation, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. That will help us bring more inspiring conversations to you and reach more people. And if you know of a leader that should be featured on the Life and Leadership podcast, please reach out to us with their details. We would love to hear from you. So Stephanie, welcome again to the Life and Leadership podcast. We didn't finish our conversation the last time because family called, and family is important. And we're talking about vulnerability and honesty and openness. So
Yeah.
we had to suspend this conversation so you could go take care of your baby. But it's great to have you back.
Thank you. It's great to be back as well.
So that's really interesting when you gave that analogy of when you had to break the news of the sad passing of a colleague to your team. And it reminds me of a conversation I was having with a leader actually during COVID. And he was talking about how, because he worked with a not for profit, and he was talking about how during that time it was really difficult for them, one, to do what they do, two, to get funding. But he just came out and he was really vulnerable to his team. And he just told them all the struggles that he was having as their CEO. So he was the CEO, he wasn't just the manager. And he said he was just amazed at not just the empathy he got from his team members, but also the ideas that started to come forward from them as to how they could solve the problem. So I think very often as leaders, we are so far ahead of everything that we leave our team behind.
Yeah.
We feel like we have to bear the whole load ourselves. So just going back to the vulnerability point, how would you say it's helped you in particular as a leader in your team?
I think one of the best things about sharing and being vulnerable with your team is that your team see you as a human being. And what
Mm,
that means is they know that I also make mistakes. I also have bad days and good days. I also have moments where, I'm not really me. I'm not 100% Stephanie, not 100% Sunny. And that's normal because I
mm,
don't expect anyone to be a robot when they come into the office or come to work. So how it's helped me is my team see me as a real person, and that reminds them they can be real people too. My team see
wonderful.
that I also have off days, which means they're permitted to have off days as well. But also, my team see honesty. Like I hold my hands up. I always say, if I make a mistake, I'll tell you about it. If I get something wrong, I'm going to say it. I'm not someone who does, public sin and private repentance. I think if you're sinning publicly, making mistakes publicly, you have to apologize publicly also. So I'm very
Mm,
big on being, well, having integrity, being sincere. So how it's helped has been, I think I've created an environment, I want to say, I mean, I'm speaking for my team. Um, I've created an environment in my teams where people can actually tell the truth. We don't have to hide
mm,
things. And that to me is massive.
it is.
I mentioned the passing of a colleague. That was the most difficult thing I've ever had to say to anyone at work, to deliver, to announce. That wasn't an announcement to a team. That was me telling them their colleague, their friend had passed away. And
Mm,
that wasn't easy. But because we have a history in our teams of talking about things that are real, honest, it made it easier, even though it was the most difficult thing in the world. And
mm,
that has really helped me in my leadership because my team see me as a person just like them. There's no, yes, I'm in charge in terms of I'm the leader, but I'm not better than them. I don't know more than them. I'm just a few steps ahead in terms of what I do. That's all it is. And that
mm,
to me is very important because I never want to be seen as someone who is Little Miss Perfect or superhuman. I'm not. I'm definitely not. I'm a regular person. And I think having those conversations, sharing a bit of your story with people, it reminds them that, oh, she's just like me. And that's what I want people to know.
yeah, yeah, Stephanie, that is so good because there's so many leaders who do feel that they have to come across with that
Mm,
persona of the superwoman, the superman, and they know everything, they can do everything.
yeah.
And they know they can't, their team knows they can't.
Yeah.
So just put the mask
Why
aside and
pretend? Yeah,
why
exactly.
pretend? Let's all just be real. But that's really powerful. And I can imagine it's created an environment of trust.
Yeah, absolutely it has. It
And
has.
trust, they say, is the glue that holds any team together.
Mm,
So it's created an atmosphere of trust, and your people follow you not just because of your position or title, but because they like you, they respect you, they see you, like you say, as a real person that they can relate to, and somebody who is going to tell them the truth. I think that
yeah.
is really, really powerful. But if
Mm,
someone was to say, I would love to be more vulnerable, but I really fear that is going to put me in a weak position with my team
mm,
members. People are going to take advantage of me. What would you say to them?
mm. I think, to be honest, there will always be people who will take advantage
Mm,
of your strengths because they'll see it as a weakness. And being vulnerable is a strength. So if you're someone who's quite, you carry a lot of empathy, or perhaps, you're very considerate, or, you're just quite reflective, somebody will see that as a weakness. And that's
mm,
that's bound to happen anyway, but that shouldn't stop you from leading like that because that's who you are. Ultimately, you can't lead as anyone else but yourself. You
mm.
can't put on a persona because the facade always falls down. Like you cannot keep it up. You need to know that actually in sharing, you're also building respect and the trust, like you mentioned.
Yeah,
Again, I caveat that with we also need to be self-aware. We're not
yeah, yeah.
oversharing, we're
Mm,
not being inappropriate because, we've all been on meetings. I know I have, where I've joined a team meeting and a manager, not a lead, a manager has been sharing, and it's gotten a bit awkward because they're oversharing. People on the call are not engaging. They're not enjoying this. It gets weird. So be self-aware of what you're sharing. But I would say don't be afraid.
yeah.
you have to hold
Yeah.
your hands up and just be sincere. People love sincerity, and I think well, most of us hate fakeness. So there.
I think they do. I think they do. And if you, I mean, on social media, for instance, the people who are bold enough to be honest and vulnerable and
Mm,
sincere are the ones that people connect with because
yeah,
we live in a world where people are really looking for authenticity. And
yep,
so,
yep,
as a leader, like you say, it's quite important that you're going to have to sit and think, okay, which is more important to me? That I
mm,
keep putting up this facade that you, like you say, at some point is going to have to fall off, or I can be real with my team and actually truly connect with them on a deeper level. And when I say deeper, nothing spooky, but just on on a more human level. I think it's really really important. So
yeah,
let's not be afraid to, even with being empathetic as a leader. That's something that previously people thought was a weakness, but more
yeah,
and more now people are embracing this idea of being
yeah,
empathetic as a leader. And I think since COVID especially, things have really changed and things have really
yeah,
moved on.
absolutely.
People are more open to sharing about mental health and all of these things. So if you're listening to this and you're still scared of being vulnerable as a leader, I just want to encourage you, along with Stephanie, to say we have moved on from where we used to be, and
Mm.
you might just be shocked at the response you will get by doing that, rather than putting up this front like you know it all. Let me just ask you, what if you look back on your career and you had to pick one person to say thank you to, who would that person be and why?
Just one person. Oh,
It has to be one person.
God,
Yes.
that's so hard. It's such a good question. Do you know what? Oh, there'll be way more than one, but I'm gonna just say one person. So the person I would thank is actually a judge. So his name, I think I can say his name. His name is His Honor Mark Dite. Um, Judge Dite was one of my first judges that I worked with when I worked in the county court. And
Mm,
he was a judge who mentored me and he really took me under his wing. And I'm going to say he really helped me mature. He really, really invested in me and spent
mm,
time talking to me. And it was quite remarkable because I was, again, very new, very young, like 22 years old, working in this courtroom, didn't really know much, but just wanted to get into the legal profession and just wanted to like understand how courts work and operate. And I worked really hard, and the judge noticed that, and I ended up becoming his assistant.
mm,
And I remember like in the morning going to his chambers, knock, knock, and we'd have these great conversations about his cases, about judgments he was writing, and it would be really enriching. And that was like for a good year and a half. I eventually left the court, moved, got other jobs, got promoted, but I always came back to the judge. And I think for me, he made the biggest difference. I had other judges who invested in me, of course, but he was such a friend to me. He saw
mm,
something in me that I hadn't seen in myself. He gave me some opportunities. It was through him that I was able to do my first vacation scheme. It was through him that I was able to attend the Court of Appeal and go to the Supreme Court and meet one of the most, well, I say one of my judicial role models, Baroness Hale. He gave me a lot of opportunities, and I think I'll be
mm.
forever grateful for his leadership. He is um, such a wonderful, intelligent, just amazing person, but he always made time for me.
That's amazing. How long ago was this?
2014, so
Wow.
11 years ago.
I love to add that question because very often we don't realize the impact that we make on people
Mm,
by what we do. I
yeah.
mean, George Dwight, I'm pretty sure when he was doing what he was doing, he wasn't counting on the fact that over 10 years later, Stephanie would be on a podcast talking about him, but it just shows how powerful leadership is, true
Yeah,
leadership, right? So he didn't have to do any of that. You didn't have to, but that's the mark of a true leader. You leave
yeah,
people better than you met them, and you make an impact, a lasting impact. I'm pretty sure, from what we've shared, in a few years' time, somebody's going to be talking about Stephanie and how, just your openness and your willingness to share and your willingness to learn and your willingness to empower your team has helped them. So good leadership, I feel, doesn't just have an impact on the role and what the job the person does, it has an impact on the person,
yeah,
period. So you do lots of things. Work-life balance is something that a lot of leaders struggle with. So
yeah.
what does that look like for you?
I'll be honest and say I'm a recovering workaholic. So I used to be
Ah,
so bad with work boundaries. Like I'm the person, formally anyway, I'm the person who brings work home, who works on weekends, who works into the evening, sometimes into the night. I'm always doing too much. I'm always doing extra bits. I'm always doing bits I don't need to do just because I want to do more. I have a real dedication, a real passion for work, but I've had to, well, on account of my current circumstances, row back a lot. So I would say my work-life balance improved quite a lot, especially when I
mm,
got into my when I became pregnant. And what it looks like to me, I always say this, and I've tried to hold on to this throughout 2024. So, I'm not going to work weekends. And I say that because I've come from jobs, I've come from roles where I always worked weekends, not because I was doing overtime, by the way, but because I always had work to do. And it was just,
mm,
preparing for a case to go to court. The reading sometimes is endless. So you just keep going. I'm at a place now where I don't work weekends, and I make sure that when I'm at work, Monday to Friday, I work, 9 to 5. Um, I'm switched on, I'm focused, I'm zoned into the work. Then once the work ends, Friday, 5 p.m., check the clock, I'm done. I don't think about work over the weekend. I
right.
don't think about my team. I don't think about what I'm doing. I leave it alone. And it's almost like when I close that laptop, whatever I was dealing with, the question, the issue, the request, it's closed until Monday at 9 o'clock or
Mm,
8:30 because I will have 8:30 meetings with my line manager. Um, but yeah, for me, work-life balance looks like really protecting my weekend, really protecting it, and actually having a clear boundary where work ends and my family and social life begins. And for me, that is Friday evenings, family
mm,
life begins. I think also because I'm a Christian, Sundays are a no-go zone for me. That is a day where I make sure I rest, I recuperate, I reset, and I have time for myself, my family. I have time with God, I have time to worship. That's very, very important. And I guess the third thing I'd say, work-life balance, my evenings are protected as well. I
mm,
live with a very specific schedule because outside of work and family stuff, I'm also studying the SQE, which is the Solicitors Qualifying Exams. I'm
mm,
currently on a break because of my maternity, but I know that my evening time is spent studying. So I have to be very, very specific about who I'm speaking to, what I'm speaking, how long I'm on the phone, where I'm going out, how long I spend in the gym, because I have to come back home and read a chapter or come back home and read
mm.
a case or do some revision notes. So I'm I want to say I've gotten into quite a good routine. Thankfully, it's taken a while. Like I was never this good, but I think over the years, it's been now 11 years of working. I've found my rhythm and I'm sticking to it. So very, very
Mm.
tough with my boundaries
That's good.
and yeah, protecting my time.
That's really important. And work life, I prefer to call it work life harmony actually, because it's never a
Mm,
balance, is it? Work
yeah,
life harmony looks different for different people, you know?
yeah,
So I think it's just important to find what it should look like for you rather than
mm,
trying to do it the way everyone does it. But
yeah, absolutely.
absolutely, even as leaders, we have to have our work life
Yeah,
harmony
yeah.
because we can't allow one to suffer at the expense of
Mhm,
the other. Now, making decisions is a big part of any leader's role. So when it
mhm.
comes to making decisions, do you have any framework that you use to help you?
Yeah, so where we are in DVSA, the agency I work for, we focus on making evidence-based decisions. So when we come to a decision, whether it's about team, whether it's about process or project, we want to have as much evidence as we can to make the decision. For me, I feel like I have quite good discernment. So I have some colleagues at work who I trust like completely. And I think if I ever have a difficult decision that I have to make, I often run past them what I'm thinking. I can be quite determined in my mindset. And if I want to do something, if I haven't thought about something, that's what I'm doing. But I know that because of that, I can get quite tunneled in my vision and I might not
Right.
consider other things. So, what I try to do when I have a decision I'm making, I know what I want to do. I run it past one or two of my trusted colleagues just to check,
Mm,
sense check where I'm going. But most of the time, my decision making, I like to get as much evidence as I can.
mm,
And then once I know what I want to do, I go for it. And one thing that I've learned of making decisions, how you communicate your decision is so important. I think it's just
absolutely.
as important, if not more, than the actual decision itself, because oftentimes we lose people and we create a rod for our backs by communicating decisions in such a poor, lazy, just unkind way. So I'm
Mm.
very, very passionate and very like intentionally communicating decisions in a way that is clear and simple. And
Yeah.
as much as possible, when there is a big, so I'm thinking about my team, when we've had big team decisions, I want to be in the room making that announcement or, relaying the message.
Mm.
It depends on the message, depends on what's being mentioned. It might be more relevant for the manager or the line manager or the person closest to the issue to discuss it. But most of the time, when there's a big decision that's been made that affects my teams or my people, I want to physically be there.
You're absolutely right. The way you communicate the decision is probably more important than the decision, whether it's a decision to take action and to go down
Yeah.
a particular route, or whether
Mm.
it's a decision to make someone redundant. Whatever
Yeah.
it is,
Yeah.
communicating it is so important that it's clear that everybody is on the same page. If you were to pick three mantras as it were, that you would say you live by, three, ethos or whatever, what would those three be for you?
Ooh. Okay, so I'm going to borrow a phrase from Maya Angelou because she's wonderful and I love her phrasing.
Mm,
I'm paraphrasing it badly, but she wrote that people will forget what you did and what you said, but they'll never forget the way you treated them.
the
That
way you
is
made them
a
feel,
massive
yeah.
part of how I live my life,
Mm,
because it kind of reflects a Christian idea, a Christian principle that I hold on to, which is treat others as you would like to be treated. And I think it's really important. Sometimes we don't even know why we're upset, but we know how we felt when we were upset. And that's
mm,
what is always lasting. So one mantra for me is leaving people in a better way than I met them, not allowing people to feel offended on my behalf, but actually trying my best to give someone kindness. That's just massive.
yeah.
Second mantra, tell the truth always. For me, it can't be anymore. It's as simple as that. It's not complicated or convoluted. Tell the truth always. Always tell the truth.
Yeah.
We have a civil service code in the civil service. It's about integrity, being objective, being impartial. But it's about telling the truth and just not allowing yourself to be caught up in a lie or
Mm,
half truths. Tell the truth always. You can never improve on the truth. Always tell the truth. That's a second thing that I would say I stand by. And the third, give yourself grace. I
mm,
think sometimes I know me, I can be very hard on myself. I have very big, lofty ambitions and dreams, but I don't always take the time to reflect and to do that, pat yourself on the shoulder. So I have to
yeah.
remind myself, give yourself grace, Stephanie. Celebrate the small wins, celebrate the journey. Look back, see how far you've traveled. Enjoy the journey, enjoy where you are.
Mm,
That's massive for me. Giving myself grace and also not just myself, extending that grace to others is a big part of how I want to lead and how I hope I'm able to lead at work, but also at home, in church, with my friends, wherever I am.
yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. One final question, Stephanie. What would you say has been your biggest life lesson? So not just a leadership lesson now.
I think the biggest lesson that I've learned, and I'm still learning, is that God is in control of everything.
Right.
I've had, not to get into the details of it now, but it's been a very challenging 2024 for myself and my family. We've had a lot of disappointments and, grief, actually, bereavement, sadly. But one thing that I hold on to, one thing that I know to be true, is that God is in control. So even though I don't know, God knows. And that has
Mm,
always helped me because I think from the smallest thing going wrong, not getting the job that I applied for, not getting the grades that I wanted to get, being overlooked for an opportunity, God knows. He knows why and he knows when.
mm,
But also I apply it to other things in life. When things happen, bad things happen. When grief knocks at our door, God knows. And that has really helped me, actually, knowing that God is in control, that He has a plan for all the things that happen in my life. And even though it's chaos to me, it's not chaos to Him. And even though it takes me by
mm.
surprise, it hasn't even startled Him. So that to me it's more than work. It's probably just the lesson of my life that God knows everything. He has, I believe anyway, a plan and a design for my life. And I have to remember that and hold on to that in difficult moments. Like I said, it's been quite a difficult time for our family, but I hold on to the fact that God knows what he's doing with me and he knows what he's doing in my life as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's powerful. I mean, that's so reassuring, isn't it? I'm a person of faith as well, so I know exactly where you're coming from. To know that there's somebody bigger, somebody mightier, but not just somebody bigger, but somebody who's really got your back, who is there
Yes.
for you. And we may not always understand what he's doing, and it might look from our own perspective and our own wisdom like this is so obvious. Why are you not doing it this way? Because that's how we see it. But to know that there's one who loves us perfectly and he has a good and perfect plan for us, and we can just rest in that assurance when we're not sure what's going on. It's massive. It gives me great comfort
Yeah.
and confidence, not just comfort, but confidence that, bring it on, whatever you're going to throw at me.
Yeah.
There's someone there that
Yeah.
I know for sure is going to see me through. Life can be tough. You can go into the office as a leader and everybody looks up to you. Everybody thinks you've got it all sorted. Everybody, admires you. But you know in your own heart that there are other challenges that you may be facing. And that is life. So what do you lean on? Some people might say, faith as a crutch or whatever. That's fine. Sometimes when you're injured you need a crutch, so I think it's fine to have something that you can lean on, that is solid, a firm foundation that does not shake. Everything around you may be sinking sand, but you've got
Yeah.
something that is sure that you can build your life on, that never fails. So totally that resonates with me. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for your time, for leaving your new baby to spend this time with me. Really authentic, really vulnerable, really open, and that's what we want on this program. So I'm pretty sure a lot of what you've shared will be really valuable to our audience. So just want to say thank you again for coming on the Life and Leadership Podcast.
The Life and Leadership Podcast is brought to you by Can Do Academy, where we help organizations develop high-performing teams and extraordinary leaders. To find out more about our work, visit candoacademy.net. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Life and Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, hit the subscribe button. That will help us reach more people and inspire more leaders. See you on the next episode.